depression is real. And even before I experienced it on a level of maybe wanting, I wouldn't say I was like, suicidal ideation. That is not what I had. There was a level where I was like, I don't want to be here anymore. Not that I was like planning anything, but it can happen to anyone.
Yeah, it can.
And I think before it happened to me, I was like, maybe I didn't understand depression. Like, oh, is it just sadness? Okay, well, go on a run or go listen to a song or be with your family. But it's truly where the enemy, like, it's a product of the enemy. Depression, anxiety, and, Satan will get into your head and just tell you lies about yourself.
Our perspective, we're flying high. Together we can touch the sky.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Rush Out Perspective, a Mastering the Art of Living podcast. What do you do when the world claps for a version of you that doesn't feel like home anymore? Charlie Welch stopped performing when she realized presence mattered more than platform. Before receiving the Civic Awards, before the nonprofit name, before Frisco knew her voice, she was on the red dirt roads of Ethiopia, learning how to hear God without the noise. Most people get clarity and go back to life. Charlie got clarity and couldn't go back because something inside of her refused to let faith stay private or music stay muted or beauty stay boxed into Sunday. She didn't pitch a vision, she lived one. Melody of Hope isn't a brand, it's a theology that breathes. It worships in the wild, coffee shops, event stages, and city festivals. For Charlie, hope isn't a concept, it's a sound, a tone, a presence. Melody of Hope literally turns that into music in public spaces. This is the Rush Out Perspective, a Mastering the Art of Living podcast. And today you'll hear what it means to tune a city soul, not from center stage, but from the edges of presence. Charlie Welch, it's a pleasure to have you on the Rush Out Perspective podcast. And it's amazing to have you here. It's a Mastering the Art of Living podcast. And when we look at your faith journey, we look at your civic work, there's certain hidden gems and certain secrets that are just noticeably present when I got to get to know who you were.
Yeah.
So
well, I appreciate that. It's very humbling what you said about me. I feel like that needs to be my bio for everything moving forward because that's very nice of you to say all those things.
Did I say that? Was there something that stood out in that intro that you're like, oh my God, like this is so true?
Yeah, I truly feel like God has done so much in my life. So you're talking about I couldn't go back to the real world and know all of the things that I've seen. And that's truly what happened. God had impacted my life so much, especially living overseas and, the last probably 15 years of truly walking with Jesus, that there was no way I could have gone back. And it didn't feel like it was hard, honestly. It just felt like God had anointed it in a way that it didn't make sense without him.
Yeah, it's not hard but necessary, right?
Yes.
Kind of thing, right?
Yes.
Before Ethiopia, before the nonprofit, before the civic work that I mentioned, what's your earliest memory of music doing something to you, not as entertainment, but as an encounter?
Yes, so probably my first experiences with music, I would wake up every morning and my mom would have a different record playing, and I just remember hearing the white noise of the record label and just the different music that she would play, and I feel like that was where that it truly spoke to me in that moment. I woke up to that, and my mom was just a great woman that just loved music so much. But personally, when I discovered music, I'm not an only child. I have a brother, he's 10 years older, but when I was growing up, I was kind of the only child because he was gone, and I would have to spend a lot of time by myself. And I learned how to work my mom's boombox, and ever since then, I feel like I would always turn music on, and it just was so meaningful and impactful to me to hear that. And I would bring my dogs in, and I would just play by myself and listen to music. And I felt like when I took my love for music back to school, my friends did not have the same love for music. They didn't know 90s R&B or hip hop or, even 90s country. It was just a different concept, I think, for my friends. And I was kind of the outsider, just loving music so much, but that's where God, I think, speaks to me the most is during music and when I'm listening to music.
It's funny because I could resonate with that. My mom used to play, believe it or not, Julio Iglesias all the time.
Yes, of course.
And she's a Hispanic woman. Yeah, she was Hispanic. Well, I didn't understand a word. It was what was being said, but I was just like, man, he's putting out that ballad pretty strong.
Yes.
My mom's like singing it all over the house.
The lyrics, though, now I listen to some of the 90s R&B songs that I listen to, and I'm like, my mom did not hear these lyrics, and I had no idea what they meant back then, but they're kind of spicy. And I'm like, oh, a 6-year-old listening, but anyways, I didn't know then, and so.
Spicy compared to today?
Oh, no. Today is next level. I truly have to monitor everything that I let my daughter listen to because Yeah, it's bad. It's pretty bad.
That's funny. Let's talk about Ethiopia. You've said Ethiopia broke you and rebuilt you.
Yeah.
What part of your identity dissolved in that season, and what truth emerged from the disorientation?
Yeah. So before I moved to Africa, actually I had an internship with a record label, a hip hop record label called G4 Music in downtown Dallas. And it was like the pinnacle job. Like this was my dream. I always wanted to work in the music industry and finally had the opportunity to do that. And I felt like after God had really stirred in my heart that there's more to life than this, I felt like there was no way of really looking back. God had kind of in a heartbeat changed my mindset to, okay, I'm not going to work for the record label anymore. I've got to do something bigger. And the identity of me, you know, being an artist and repertoire manager for a label, that kind of went away. I felt like that died on a practical level. And man, like what emerged, just the depravity that I saw in a third world underdeveloped country, I've just never seen anything like it. There was so much in America, resources and even money in the music industry, that all of these resources could be used to help others. But in America, at the label, they're buying, you know, cars and spending it on girls and just all these things that were just very temporary things. And I truly feel like God just kind of broke my heart for seeing the depravity of the world and thinking, man, I've got all this experience. Both of my degrees are in music, worked for a label. Now it's time to combine all that with what I saw overseas to help build something back in the States.
Wow, that's you know, it's true. You know, you think of all the materialism, and then you go to a place like that, you know, Ethiopia, and it kind of breaks you. It kind of breaks you down. Say these people are barely living on, you know, water and you know, the bare essentials, whatever they were doing without too.
The faith that they had too was the faith that people that had nothing, like I worked in a trash dump in Ethiopia, and there were people that were praising the Lord. Just, I mean, they had nothing and they lived in a trash dump, and it was just very convicting. I'm like, would I have that much joy if I had nothing? I truly don't think I would. So it just was very eye-opening for me to see.
That's amazing. You know, this is the second time I heard that. Like, because Melissa, I told you about Melissa Dobby. She was on another podcast a few minutes ago, and she was talking about her trip to Ethiopia.
Okay. Wow, I need to meet her.
Yeah, and she talked about the faith. She mentioned that the faith about how strong it was, and that was something that resonated with her, like spiritually, and that helped her forge her path with the Air Power Foundation, which is crazy. Y'all need to meet, y'all need to get together.
For sure, share some stories.
Yeah, you know, most people finish a mission trip and they go back to life, right? You didn't. Why not?
Just like I had mentioned before, I could not unsee what I saw. And just to know that there's people in our backyard that even before I started Melody of Hope, I had no idea these issues were prevalent in our city. And I think once I kind of started doing some research in the city, how can we use music to help? I just started seeing all these issues in our city that truly was just very eye-opening to me. And I felt like after that, I could not go back to normal life that didn't have a purpose. And I'm not saying, you know, regular jobs don't have purpose by any means, but this was just so much more purposeful back, you know, thinking about my degrees and then the label and then living overseas.
Yeah. You know, so most regular jobs don't even speak to your heart like some of your purposes do, right?
Yes.
So can you recall the specific moment when it stopped being a dream or a feeling and turned Melody of Hope into something you could not do?
Yes. So I feel like the Lord has just really blessed our organization with the ability to kind of bring in all different areas of the community together under the banner of music. We do such a great job of, you know, bringing in artists, bringing in the business community, community leaders, civic leaders. And I think that was kind of eye-opening to me to see that we really are bringing the community together to help others through music. And I feel like there's also, I mean, we were talking before I got up here, but there's also many instances that doesn't make sense without God. Like over the last 12 years, the fact that we have always been in the black financially, that doesn't make sense. As a nonprofit, that is unheard of. And there's just so many little instances that God has truly been there where it doesn't make sense. It has to be God, because none of us had degrees in nonprofit. You know, 40 of us started Melody of Hope and we were all millennials, didn't have kids, we were single, and we had no idea what we were doing. And I feel like God has just blessed it. In the unknown, we just stepped out in faith, and it has to be Jesus because it doesn't make sense without him.
Amen. You know, we talk about a platform-driven culture, right? How do you protect the presence of Melody of Hope against platform-driven culture?
You know, I feel like presence to me, that's a great question because I've never been asked that. But also I feel like I don't know how to be anyone else than myself. And so when I started Melody of Hope, I'm like, what are the things that I love that I can put into a nonprofit and use that for good? I do feel like our generation, and even this like social media driven generation, authenticity is truly the highest vibration. And I don't know how to be anything but who I am. You know, I'm on the phone with my brother before I got here talking about, you know, how I have so much anxiety getting on a platform and getting on stage and talking. He's like, no one would ever know that. But also, I'm not afraid to show my weaknesses because I feel like once you do that, there's a level of just like being so vulnerable, there's a level that no one can touch you at. Meaning if I am so vocal about what I struggle with and what my, you know, flaws are and sin struggles, then the devil can't touch me because the people that know me, they know all this. And I feel like it also just allows for an area to give glory back to God.
Yeah,
like he's redeemed it.
That's so cool because I can resonate with you as a podcast host. You know, it's not always like, whoa, I'm going to have Wendy Welch today. Like, how am I going to tackle this this conversation? And you can get those nerves, right? In many ways, do you see it as like this spiritual muscle that's God's working you to become even more resilient and strong?
Yes, I truly believe that God, I don't know why God made me like this truly, but God has just given me, like, I don't really care what people think about me. As long as people know I love Jesus and I love helping, then there's nothing anyone can say or do that truly affects me. And I think that's different for people to see. I think people maybe don't think like that, or there's a type of vulnerability that people are like, man, I would never say that. Like, I would never go and say like, oh, I got hit in the mouth with a softball and now I have fake teeth. They're just all these things. Like, I'm just very open about who I am as a human. And I think it gives such an invitation for people to come into that space that have struggled or have that vulnerability or, you know, insecurity and be able to ask me questions. I think truly it's just an asset, glory to the Lord, because he has redeemed it. And I just, like I said, in a good way, I don't care if people like me or not, because I know that I'm doing what God has placed in my heart.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. And I think that was why it was so important to get you on this podcast. Is mastering the art of living, mastering the art of living that's kind of God ordained and God centered. And that's something I recognize right away with your, you know, one of the things I think I wrote about is your conviction, about the conviction that drives you and motivates you. That's very spot on.
Yeah.
And I think that's, you know, you're just going for it in a meaningful way. And it's like, you're you're growing a garden, you know, in this area.
Appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am. Callings don't always feel like confidence. It feels like obedience. Describe a moment when you kept going, not out of belief in yourself, but belief in something bigger.
Oof, yeah. This question is, I've never answered this question on a public platform. And going back to even me saying that I'm very comfortable talking about my insecurities and my flaws and my sin struggles because I have been able to help so many people, and humbly saying that it's only because of God I'm able to help those people. But Rush, there was a time a few years ago that I had battled just some depression and anxiety, and it was so bad that the enemy got in my head and just was telling me all these lies about myself, like, you're this way and this way and this way. And I actually was maybe on the brink of a suicidal depression. And I don't use that term lightly because I feel like everybody talks about depression, but when it is chemical and you have no idea like how to get out of this hole, like it didn't make sense to me, like how God would allow, sorry,
It's okay.
Getting kind of choked up, how God would allow that to happen to me when I'm, you know, only following him. I'm only doing things God wants me to do. But it was a brutal time, and I feel like I'm not really sure what God has done in that moment, but, you know, 2 years later, I do believe that the point of my life and the point of God keeping me here has to be bigger, because to go through a time where you maybe want to end your life, it truly is, it's just next level pain that I would not wish on my worst enemy. And I do believe that, you know, I definitely think you're anointed. Your story and how you're on this platform, like God anoints people. And I'm like, still, Lord, how is it me? I don't know. All I know is music and Jesus. And I pray most days I know more about Jesus than music, but sometimes it's opposite. But like, I truly feel like God, it can only be God again. And for him to put me on this platform, I have to be able to talk about that pain because it's going to lead to a purpose. And if that purpose is having a conversation with someone that is going through that, then that is worth it, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know how else to explain it, but I saw the goodness of people in my community in that time that truly, it's hard for me to fathom the amount of love and support when I was going through that hard time. You know, I think there's goodness in humanity, and I think that it's hard to see sometimes, but my friends and family, music, Jesus just really stepped in that dark space. And you know, I'm here now, and I think that if it wasn't for those people, I probably would not be here.
Well, you know, I appreciate you sharing that with me because I do believe that people's struggles and sufferings are very sacred.
Yeah.
They're like treasures, you know. And for you to honor me with this moment of vulnerability and sharing this heartfelt struggle is, you know, I think it's God purposeful. You know, His purpose is for God to put it out there, right? And you're not getting in God's way when you're doing that, right?
Sure.
And it's beautiful, and just to resonate with it, I know what that feels like. I know what
so
going
sorry.
through that experience, and you know, and I think a lot of people who watch this podcast are going to resonate with how you've gone through, how you've had to confront this issue, and I'm happy that you're working it through, and you've transcended from that experience to where you're at today. And
Yeah, but sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
But you're also not alone. Like, I think that for me, that stigma, and I was very vocal because I needed help. Like, talking to people, you know, obviously on top of the copious amount of medication I had to be on, which was also never been on medication like that. I think there's a lot of guilt and shame in that. You know, how are you this joyful on a platform and everyone sees you smiling all the time? But this is really what's happening in my heart. As soon as I leave this event, if I don't immediately talk to someone, Satan will just use that. And man, like, there's so many times that if it wasn't for my friends and talking about it, then I wanted to drive my car off the road, like, truly. And I'm not saying that lightly. Depression is real. And even before I experienced it on a level of maybe wanting, I wouldn't say I was like, you know, suicidal ideation. That is not what I had. There was a level where I was like, I don't want to be here anymore. Not that I was like planning anything, but it can happen to anyone.
Yeah, it can.
And I think before it happened to me, I was like, maybe I didn't understand depression. Like, oh, is it just sadness? Okay, well, go on a run or go listen to a song or be with your family. But it's truly where the enemy, like, it's a product of the enemy, depression, anxiety. And, you know, Satan will get into your head and just tell you lies about yourself, because God is not an accuser. God looks at you and sees Jesus, which is insane. I don't understand how he sees Jesus, but it's unconditional love. But if you have something in your head that's constantly telling you negative thoughts, then that's the enemy.
Yeah.
And the only way to combat the enemy is Jesus. And I felt like there was a time where even Jesus, though, I didn't feel like he was doing anything.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it takes a few weeks for medication to kick in and before your levels get back up. But like I said, everything that you go through pain-wise, it has to lead to a purpose. Or I'm like, okay, I didn't go through all this for nothing. It has to have a purpose. And to be able to share it on a public platform, it feels good for me to be able to talk about it in hopes that maybe someone that's going through that would see everybody's not so put together. Don't have shame, like, just ask questions and ask people for help if you need it.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that with me, because it has been in my heart, and this is the irony is it has been in my heart because I've seen people. I've just recently was just telling my wife, was like, yeah, you know, I think I want to have a podcast on suicide.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah, seriously.
Whoa.
Like just
Gives me goosebumps.
this morning. Yeah, this morning. I was like, I just found out. Well, I had a friend pass away last month, and then a few months before that, same scenario. And you're talking about, you know, somebody who was like, he was the Central Texas, very popular Central Texas news anchor.
Yeah.
And so for me, maybe we can share a platform with that. That'd be great.
Truly, like, I'm gonna cry. That's crazy you're saying that, because the few people, like my core group of friends obviously knows because they were helping me, but just the few people that didn't know me and I talk about it, they're like, oh my gosh, we struggled here, and this, like, there's a whole like conference about this. Can you help? And like I said, I don't know what God is doing in it still. And I think once I'm able to kind of turn that pain into purpose, I think that is truly what God is wanting me to do. And, you know, it's been a long journey, and I've also, you know, had a bunch of therapy and, you know, over 250 therapy sessions. So I can tell you all my red flags, all the good things about me, all the bad things about me. But also goes back to that vulnerability. I think that when you are vulnerable, you allow God to do a work in you that is not possible unless you are vulnerable in that space. And look at all your amazing pastors. Like one of my favorite, Matt Chandler, and then Jonathan Pokluda, they're so vocal about their struggles, and it speaks to our generation. You know, everything you can think of, they struggled with. And for them to go on stage and be like, this is who I was, and this is where the enemy tried to get me, but God.
Yeah.
Like that, but God is huge, and that's the reason.
Yeah, that's great. We're going to do this. We're going to get we'll get a podcast going about it, or get a conversation about it about suicide, and talk about it. And we'll you know, I think that's the most important thing too. Is I think I was telling somebody that I didn't want to be part of a veteran organization for a long time.
Yeah, I said that.
Remember I was telling you that, right? But God said you need to be part of this conversation.
Yes.
You know, so I think we need to put a conversation together about suicide and depression. We'll say depression.
Yes.
And we'll have some experts on it, and we'll figure it out. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
And
I'm in. Like
and,
truly.
Okay. Yeah, and we'll need to lead the narrative, and we're there to listen and hear people share the story. We'll make it happen. Okay, I want that for sure. And I swear that's exactly the conversation I had with my wife. Yes, I said I think I want to have something on depression and suicide, because you know, it's a thing that needs to be discussed, and I think it'll be a healing process for both of us, all of us that are a part of it, that have experienced that.
Absolutely, yes.
Let's see here. Switching gears, what have your artists taught you about God?
I like this question. You have the best questions. Honestly, I just want to give a shout out to you. I've been on many podcasts and TV interviews, and the questions these are purposeful, like meaningful, get to the heart of why you do what you do, and that's a gift. So
Thank
you're
you.
very anointed.
Appreciate it. I hope I'm doing it.
Yes, you are. This is going to sound lame, super lame, but I feel like our artists are kind of like my children. Like they're older than me, a lot of them, but there's just a level of wanting to steward and really care for these artists that, you know, outside of my child, I don't feel like I think that about any other group that I'm involved with, but it's just cool to see, you know, we have all these resources that God has blessed us with, you know, finances, you know, spaces like beautiful like this, and resources that our job as believers is to steward that back. And so for me and our employees and our board, all these resources are going to help the artist. And so artist care is a huge aspect of what we do. You know, we care about the artist on a spiritual level, mental health, you know, physical health. And so I think it's helped me be able to steward a little bit better. But also what they've taught me about God is, you know, God is the master creator. Like he is the ultimate creator. And to see these young kids and even, you know, adults, we have all different ages and all the things in Melody of Hope, but to see them create is like, man, I see the creator's heart in them because I can't create music like that. So I hire people that do. And so it's just really cool to see the creative side, and, you know, this God, like they're anointed. God has anointed them.
That's amazing. That's amazing. That's why I told you, like I have this love for, you know, I told you I created a podcast for that I have.
Can I be on that too? All your podcasts.
Yes, yeah. I want to get that one up and running. I told Tammy, said we got to get this thing rolling again. So I'm in too, because I knew God was saying put this on the side for a while.
Sheesh.
And talk to the right people, and we'll get this thing with the way it's supposed to happen.
You know what? Also, like you were talking about, you know, platforms that are hard for you to get on. Like public speaking I always get anxiety. So what's God going to do? Give you more opportunities to like get on platforms?
Yeah, exactly.
It sounds like something God would do.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's what he says. You don't want to be a part of the veteran community? You're going to be a part of the veteran.
Put you
right in the middle where you need to be, not where you want to be.
Yes, for sure.
Let's see here. What's the moment you knew Melody of Hope mattered?
Mattered. Oof. I can't just have one, probably. Like there's many instances, and
is there one or two that you're like, oh my God, this is...
Yes.
Like,
so probably the most impactful program we ever did, and this came probably later in Melody of Hope. We had been in operations about 8 years at that point. We started a music therapy program with an organization called Treasured Vessels Foundation. And the idea of the program, which we had never done, honestly, we had no idea, once again, what we were doing. We just knew we wanted to help and do that in a music therapy, from a music therapy aspect. And so the program looked like, all these girls, children, women, like that had been rescued from the sex trafficking industry. They had to be able to have a way to get all the pain and trauma and just horrible, horrendous situations they were in. They needed a way to get that out and really help to heal from that. And so we had an artist come in and help them write songs and poems. Like they would write out the ways that, just all the things that they had gone through and put it in a song. And then at the end of that, the artist would teach them to play an instrument. And the impact of seeing those girls singing and hearing them singing the songs that they had written about of their journey to their community and to everyone from Treasured Vessels, that's life-changing to see that. And to see the healing power of music, it's next level.
Yeah.
That was probably the most impactful story that I have.
Wow, I could feel that when you were talking about to have these kids to create a song and some of them are emoting whatever they're going through and just...
It has to be God, though, because once again, we had never done that. We did not know anything. We just knew that we wanted to help people with music and glorify God and help a nonprofit, and it just worked. And another testimony of God.
Let's talk about Melody of Hope. What do y'all do as an organization?
Yeah. So we exist to really provide paid performance platforms for artists to share their God-given talents to the world. And so what that looks like is we will partner with about 24 partner nonprofits every year, and we provide our services at no cost to them. And so that looks like, any fundraiser, gala, fun run, anything that they need music, we will come alongside of them and help kind of subset the cost of that so they're not having to pay for talent. And so then in exchange, that gives our artists a platform to share, maybe their testimony, if they love the Lord, and even if they don't, they can share they're just a platform for them to share their craft to the world. And I think in the last few years where we have really seen growth is we have a lot of corporations now coming to us, sports teams being like, hey, we need music for this and we have no idea how to do it. Here's a budget, find us an artist. And so we've really seen a tremendous amount of growth in doing these events for the corporate world as well. But truly just these paid platforms and creating an artistic movement in Frisco. It's been an uphill journey, but Frisco, I love Frisco so much. But when we got here, actually the first person I met with was Tammy. She's one of my best friends, mentors, and seeing what the artistic climate was like at that time, this was 10, 11 years ago, and to see where it's come, it's been really cool to see.
That is so cool. I mean, you talk about now you mention this, you said one of the first people you met was Tammy, which is so ironic because here I am picking two people out of the blue.
Crazy.
She didn't say go talk to this person, and you didn't tell me to go talk to Tammy. It's like I'm putting these two dynamic, people who are inspiring music to be part of Frisco culture. And why is God doing that right now? It's like, well, you got to start your podcast. Exactly. That's what I'm thinking.
Said it.
That's what I'm saying. Exactly. No, but it's just cool that connection you have with each other. So it's like, dude, that's not cool. That's like God stuff. It's like God's saying something to you about these two dynamic women and that they're interconnected with each other about music and your love and my passion for music in many ways before we knew each other. It's just it's very cool, and I do like R&B for sure, 100%. But
what's your favorite music? I need to ask you.
My favorite, back in the day was R&B for sure, 100%. Man, I used to love some Gerald Levert and all these other
Stop. No one knows Frisco. I love Frisco, but there's a certain kind of music that everyone in Frisco wants to play. So we're trying to bring in some culture, and Maker's Gym, I have to give a shout out to them. They do such a great job of these open mic nights, and it's a vibe. So anyways, anyone that wants to come and perform, that's a vibe.
I'll say right now I don't know what my favorite part of music is because it's so different now. But I would say maybe country a little bit. Okay. So but that going from R&B, like Eric Rakim and whatever, all those things. I'll stop right there. But anyways,
no, that's great. That's me. That's me.
Good. Okay. What's the part of this story about Ethiopia, Melody of Hope, or yourself that you haven't told before? Not because it's true, but because I think you said part of it. You shared part of it right now. Is there a story that you would say, oh my God, this blessing was bestowed upon me that really stands out?
So yes, I do have one of those. But you said something about sacred, like a
Yeah, sacred to
repeat that
say.
to me?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's not because it was too sacred to say
Yeah.
casually.
Yes. So I think that, oh my gosh, I've been a believer for probably 20 years. I think actively walking with Jesus, where I wanted to surrender all areas of my life to Jesus. I think what I never truly understood until starting a nonprofit and even just the last couple years is the unconditional love of God. I feel like I never understood that. And maybe I still don't. Like the idea that God loves you, God loves me, and seeing all the moronic mistakes I make, or just, unintentional, even intentional mistakes, like that concept is very hard for me to understand. And knowing the unconditional love of the Lord, everyone I think would say, oh, you're a believer, you know that. But until it really gets to your heart and you see, okay, I've done all this, and truly knowing all the things you've done and God still loves you, it's just a very hard concept for me to understand. And having a daughter, I was like, that's it. Like the unconditional love of, oh my gosh, like I would kill someone for my daughter. Like that type of love is very hard to understand. Like, and I'm not an angry person, but if someone was coming after my kid, it would be easy for me to be like, okay, like I love her so much that I would do that for her.
Yeah.
And so just like Christ, like loving us so much that he would die, I don't understand that.
Why do you think God selects individuals like me, you, Tammy, to be kind of at the forefront of movements? I host a podcast that helps elevate other people's purpose and mission.
Yeah.
You help. You're a part of. You're a founder of Melody of Hope. That's purpose and mission. Why do you think God selects, or how do you think He selects us?
I don't know. Well, you and Tammy are next level. Truly, I'm like, I don't think I belong in the same category as
You're
you all,
here.
but
You're present. You got to be present to win, and you're present for sure. So you're winning.
That's the
We're
only.
both winning.
That's it. Okay, got it.
We're both winning.
I think that I just have a weird, and I say this very humbly, I don't like talking about myself, but I have this weird like gift of drawing people and kind of creating just masses of people influence. I'm not really sure. I think that it probably has something to do with going back to me being vulnerable and just authentic. I think if you know me for 2 seconds, or if you know me, I've got best friends that we've been friends for 34 years. Like, regardless of how you know me, how long, you would know that I love Jesus and I love music and I love people. I think that would be evident in anything that I do. And I'm also a fallen sinner, and that is I'm very open about that, because I'm just, God has redeemed it, and so I don't try to hide from it anymore. I think, like I said, I don't know why God is choosing to use me, but it is like he slaps me in the face every day with it. I think, sometimes I'm like, oh, Melody of Hope, it's so much work. It is so much work for, we don't make a lot of money. It's going to other nonprofits. And I think God is always like, nope, this is what you're doing. And I think just being obedient to that has made a huge difference. But I truly don't know. It's a joke to me, like in my friends. I'm like, I'm just good at a few things, and God has just really blown it up, and all glory to him,
Yeah, all glory, because when we look at the city and how much music is being an integral part of its core community now, like, that has movements that you and Tammy and other people are involved in, that spearheaded having music be part of its culture. That's like, you think about like, the American Country Music Awards being here multiple years. You're just like, dude, where am I living now? Like, am I in Nashville and I don't even know it?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, yes.
Like how, I attribute some of those action steps with how you're implementing that.
Sure.
That's dynamic stuff.
I think that I'm also, and you and Tam, like resilience is a core quality that I think all leaders have to have. And I think that you have to be willing to hear the word no 47 times before you hear the word yes. I remember when I tried to move to Africa, raising money, I heard so many no's, and it can like work on your psyche and be like, this is not what God wants me to do, because I'm hearing all these no's. But in the no's is how you grow.
Yeah.
And I think that having a passion for something, it doesn't matter if you hear no's, because the conviction of that. And for us, I've said many times, it's Jesus and music and people. And so when I would hear all these issues, like there's no music in the city or there's not a lot of funding, I'm like, okay, well, we're going to go in. We're not going to wait. We're just going to do it. And so I think our team is just very good about, we if something is not there, we build it. And, obviously surrounding yourself with smarter people in the room than you. I look at our board and our artists and, you and Tammy, leaders in our city, and there's so much wisdom. And I think I'm a sponge. I love being the dumbest person in the room, and I'm fine with that. I know obviously I'm not always that, but there's just ways that people can help you if you just will listen and take in their advice and wisdom, because it takes a community.
That's so cool, and I'll just mirror you when what you said is I don't know why you're here. I don't know why Tammy got
got
on
an
my
email.
podcast. I know. I don't know why Tammy was on my podcast, but I do believe it's because I just went there, like you said, like you just go there,
Yeah.
you go where God tells you, you're following that North Star, that God-given voice is saying, be determined, be this person, just, let's just go for it.
Yeah.
And I think that tenacity it should be recognized in you and how you're making music a very integral part of this community, for sure. Hands down, praise God for that, for sure. Thank you. Yes. You've helped shape the emotional and spiritual tone of this city without ever needing the spotlight. If there's one truth or value that still hasn't landed in Frisco yet, one thing you've committed to reinforcing through Melody of Hope, what is it?
First of all, setting the emotional and spiritual tone, like, that's so nice. That's very humbling. I very appreciative you said that. I would hope that people would see that. I think what I think our city needs, especially after a divisive election, is kindness and just serving others, thinking about others more than themselves. And I don't do a good job of that daily. I think it's always a submission to God, and truly you have to take that to the Lord. But I think our team does a great job of leading like Christ. Someone asks me, what's the best quality of a leader? I will say, are they servant-minded? Are they servant leaders? Do they care about others more than their own agenda, more than their own money? That is the game changer, because if everyone did that, like, if I care more about you than you care about me, then that would perpetuate within the community.
Yeah.
And it was very hard to see. The people that I've known here for so long, elections bring out a part of you that even myself, I'm like, I didn't know that type of just anger could be in me. But I think that's another story.
Yeah.
But I think servant leadership modeled after Christ is how you change the world.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Okay, so what are you guys at Melody of Hope working on right now? Any exciting events you want to tell us about that you'd like to plug in?
Yes, thanks for saying that.
Yeah.
So we have a crazy cool event with the Visual Arts Guild. It is the Arts in the Arena event, and it is next month at the Co-America Center. We are partnering with them to bring in live music for the whole weekend, and they're going to obviously do the visual arts, and that's probably one of my favorite partnerships that we do. But we probably have 150 more events for the rest of the year. We do stuff at Rollertown. We've got North Texas Giving Day coming up, our big Christmas silent auction. Gosh, you put me on the spot. There's so many. I came in.
It's okay.
Yeah, we've got probably 150 the rest of the year.
Wow.
But yeah, we need more artists. So if you're an artist and you're listening, we need probably 50 artists at any given time because of the amount of events that we have. But yeah, just a lot of stuff going on.
Awesome. Where can someone visit? What website can they go to go see what you have going on?
Yeah, so it's just melodyofhope.org, and we are up under construction. We're getting a website makeover thanks to a friend that's donating. Oh my gosh, she's donating all of that for free. But we do have a website, melodyofhope.org. You can find all the information.
That's awesome. Okay, this is the part of the podcast where I always say, someone out there that needs that affirmation, that confirmation of what they're chasing. Or there's people that you want to say thank you to for affirming you and your purpose and or helping you throughout, pushing Melody of Hope. But I always say, look at the camera and do one of those.
Oof. So I feel like one of my best friends, Amanda Hall, we're actually meeting after this to talk about Melody of Hope stuff, but just truly a servant leader. I talk about, modeling her leadership after Christ, loves people an incredible amount. And Amanda, you're doing a great job. You do all the things and you never want recognition. It's so rare to have a leader that doesn't want recognition, and you're a gem, and I can't wait to see you later.
Awesome. Amanda, I'm going to say this about Amanda too. I reached out to you maybe about a year ago, saying I wanted to get Melody of Hope on the podcast, and I would love to have a conversation with you as well, and and get to know your heart. And I just want to put that out there as well. So
We both know her.
yeah, well, I'll get to know her for sure. No, it's I gotta say, Charlie, it's a pleasure to have you on the
Thank you
podcast,
so
on the
much.
Rush Hour Perspective of Mastering the Art of Living podcast. I resonate with everything that you were saying, and I want to be invited to one of your major events, so I can maybe go out there and do some interviews and get
Absolutely.
get that podcast kick started, and maybe be a permanent fixture of how to
Yes.
sit down with bands and recording artists and stuff like that. And
Man, God
get
is
them out
good.
there. All right.
That's so nice. Yes,
figure it out.
anytime. Our 40 podcasts we're doing now.
It's a pleasure to meet you today, and thank you for being on the podcast.
too.
All right, guys, that's it for the Rush Hour Perspective and Mastering the Art of Living podcast. As I always say, have peace and the light in you, and remember that the ocean refuses no river.
Bye, y'all.
Our perspective, we're flying high. Together we can touch the sky.